Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to be sitting here today with my favorite person to talk to, Ria. How are you doing today, Ria?
I am doing wonderful, Tom. Thank you so much. And honestly, I am buzzing with energy because I love the topic we chose for today. It is something that sounds a bit intimidating at first, but once you break it down, it is actually quite beautiful.
I completely agree. Today, we are talking about how to speak like a pro. And you're right, the word pro can feel heavy. It makes people think of CEOs in suits, or news anchors, or people who never make mistakes. But that is not really what we mean, is it?
Not at all. When we say speak like a pro, we don't mean speaking perfectly or sounding like a dictionary. We mean speaking with confidence. We mean having that ability to walk into a room, open your mouth, and have people actually want to listen to you. It is about connection, not just perfection.
That is such a great distinction. Connection over perfection. I think a lot of our listeners get stuck in that trap of perfection. They think, oh, I messed up my grammar or I forgot a word, so I'm not a pro. But I've heard native speakers stumble all the time, and they still command the room. So, Ria, if it's not about perfect grammar, what is the first thing that separates a nervous speaker from a pro speaker?
I think it starts before you even say a word. It's the mindset, it's the breath. Nervous speakers usually rush. They feel like they are stealing time from the listener. They talk really fast because they subconsciously think, if I talk fast, I can get this over with before they realize my English is bad. But a pro takes up space. A pro takes a deep breath. They are comfortable with the silence.
That is fascinating. The fear of silence. I feel that myself sometimes. If there's a pause in the conversation, I panic and want to fill it with noise. But you're saying that silence is actually a power move?
Absolutely. Think about the most charismatic people you know. When they're asked a question, they do not jump in immediately. They pause. They think. That 2 seconds of silence tells the audience, I am confident enough to make you wait for my thought. It shows you're in control. And for language learners, that is a huge secret weapon. If you rush, you make mistakes. If you pause, you give your brain time to find the right word.
I love that. It's like giving yourself permission to think. So, step one is slowing down and embracing the pause. But what about the voice itself? Sometimes I hear people who have great vocabulary, but they sound flat. They sound like a robot reading a script. How do we fix that?
Oh, that's the melody. English is a musical language. It has peaks and valleys. If you speak on one flat line, you lose the listener's attention immediately. Speaking like a pro means feeling what you're saying. If you're telling a happy story, your voice should go up. If you're talking about something serious, your voice might drop and slow down. It's about emotional alignment. You have to let your feelings color your words.
Emotional alignment. That is a beautiful way to put it. I remember when I was learning a second language, I felt shy about using that melody. I felt like I was acting. I felt fake. Do you think a lot of learners struggle with that feeling of feeling fake when they try to use intonation?
100%. It feels like you are wearing a costume. But here's the truth, Tom. You are acting. Speaking is a performance. When you speak your native language, you're performing the version of yourself that grew up in that culture. When you speak English, you're building a new persona. It's okay to exaggerate a little bit at the beginning. It feels weird to you, but to the listener, it just sounds engaging. You have to be brave enough to sound a little silly to yourself so you can sound natural to everyone else.
That is such good advice. Be brave enough to sound silly. I think that applies to so many things in life, not just language. Okay, so we have pacing and we have melody. What about clarity? I know a lot of people worry about their accent. They think, I can never speak like a pro because I have a strong accent. What do you say to them?
I say embrace it. An accent is your history. It's a sign of your bravery. It shows you speak more than one language. Speaking like a pro doesn't mean getting rid of your accent. It means clarity. There's a difference. You can have a thick accent, but be incredibly clear if you enunciate your consonants and open your mouth. A lot of learners mumble because they lack confidence. They hide behind their lips. A pro speaker articulates. They finish the ends of their words.
Right. It's the difference between mumbling simply because you're scared versus projecting your voice. I noticed that when people are confident, they actually speak louder, not shouting, but they project.
Exactly. It is about energy. Imagine you are throwing the words to the person at the back of the room. Even if you were just talking to one person across a table, imagine your voice is a physical object you are handing to them. When you mumble, you are dropping the object on the floor. When you project, you are handing it to them with care.
I like that visual. Handing the words with care. I want to talk about vocabulary for a second. There is this myth that to sound like a professional, you need to use big, complicated academic words. You need to use words like utilize instead of use. Is that true?
Oh, I am so glad you brought this up. This is my biggest pet peeve. The answer is a huge, resounding no. In fact, it is the opposite. True pros, the best speakers in the world, use simple language. They use clear, direct, strong words. If you use a $5 word when a $1 word works better, you do not sound smart. You sound like you're trying too hard. You create a barrier between you and the listener.
That is such a relief to hear. So we do not need to memorize the entire dictionary.
Not at all. Think about Steve Jobs. Think about Oprah. Think about great storytellers. They do not use confusing jargon. They use language that a 12-year-old could understand, but they use it with conviction. The goal is to be understood, not to be admired for your vocabulary complexity. If you're explaining an idea and the other person is confused, you have failed as a speaker, no matter how fancy your words were.
So simple is powerful. That reminds me of something else. Filler words. The ums, the uhs, the likes. We all do it. I do it. You do it. But does that ruin the professional vibe?
It depends on the frequency. We are human, so a few filler words are natural. If you were completely robotic and never said it might actually sound creepy. But when every third word is like, or it becomes a distraction. It breaks the flow. The listener has to work hard to filter out the garbage to get to the gold. And usually we use filler words because we're afraid of that silence we talked about earlier.
It all comes back to the silence.
It really does. Instead of saying, just stop. Close your mouth. Take a breath. It feels like an eternity to you, but to the listener, it is just a moment. It makes you look thoughtful. Replacing filler words with pauses is the single fastest way to upgrade how you sound. It's instant.
I'm going to try that more often. I'm going to catch myself. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. We're talking about the mechanics, voice, vocabulary, pausing. But what about the content? What makes someone a pro at conversation? I feel like being a pro speaker is actually about being a pro listener.
Tom, you hit the nail on the head. You cannot be a great speaker if you are not present. Have you ever talked to someone who is just waiting for their turn to speak? You can see it in their eyes. They're not listening to you. They're rehearsing what they're going to say next.
Yes, and it feels terrible. It makes me want to stop talking.
Exactly. A pro speaker makes the other person feel like the most important person in the world. They use active listening. They ask follow up questions. They refer back to something you said 5 minutes ago. That shows they are mentally organized and deeply engaged. If you want to speak like a pro in English, stop worrying so much about your grammar and start getting really curious about the person you're talking to. When you're curious, your anxiety drops because the focus is not on you anymore. The focus is on them.
That is such a massive mindset shift, moving the spotlight from yourself to the other person. That actually takes so much pressure off the learner. You don't have to perform, you just have to connect.
Precisely. And when you do speak, structure helps. A pro usually has a point. They don't just ramble. Even in casual conversation, there's a little bit of a structure. They make a statement, they give a reason or a story, and then they ask a question or wrap it up. We call it the Oreo method sometimes. The cookie, the cream, the cookie. Open the idea, give the details, close the idea. It keeps things tidy.
The Oreo method. I love cookies, so I'll remember that. Open, details, close. It prevents you from talking in circles, which is something I think happens when we get nervous in the second language. We keep talking because we're not sure if we made our point yet.
Yes, the loop of doom. You say something and you think, did they understand? So you say it again in a different way, and then you say it again. And suddenly, you've been talking for 2 minutes and everyone is lost. A pro says it once, clearly, and then stops. They trust that they were heard. And if they weren't, they wait for the other person to ask for clarification.
Trust. That seems to be a recurring theme here. Trusting your preparation, trusting the silence, trusting the listener. It requires a bit of vulnerability.
It really does. Speaking is a vulnerable act. You are putting your thoughts out into the world to be judged. But here is the thing, Tom. Most people are rooting for you, especially when they know English is not your first language. They want you to succeed. They are not hunting for your mistakes. They are listening for your ideas. Once you realize the audience is on your side, it becomes much easier to relax and speak like a pro.
That is so true. I think we project our own harsh inner critic onto other people. We think they are judging us, but really, they are usually just thinking about themselves or what they're going to have for lunch.
So true. The spotlight effect. We think everyone is looking at our flaws, but they aren't.
Ria, I want to ask you about something practical. Let's say one of our listeners is about to go into a job interview, or a big meeting, or maybe just a first date in English. They are 5 minutes away. They are nervous, their palms are sweating. What can they do in those 5 minutes to get into the pro zone?
Oh, I love a good warm up routine. First, physical state. Change your body. If you're hunched over looking at your phone, your voice will be small. Stand up. Stretch. Open your chest. We talked about projecting. You need your lungs open for that. So, power pose for a minute.
Power pose, like Superman.
Like Superman or Wonder Woman, hands on hips, chest out. It actually changes your hormones. It lowers cortisol and raises testosterone. It makes you feel confident. Then, warm up your mouth. Do some silly tongue twisters. Loosen up the jaw. A lot of us hold tension in our jaw when we're stressed, and that leads to mumbling. So make some funny faces. Stretch your mouth wide.
Okay, so we're standing like Superman and making funny faces. I hope nobody walks in on us in the bathroom while we're doing this.
Let 'em look. You are preparing to be great. And then the last thing is the mental prime. Remind yourself of your intention. Why are you there? Not to show off your English. You were there to share an idea, or to get a job, or to make a friend. Connect with your purpose. When you have a purpose, the fear shrinks.
That is powerful. Purpose over fear. I also find that taking a deep breath and actually smiling helps. It sounds cliche, but can you hear a smile?
You absolutely can hear a smile. It changes the shape of your mouth, which changes the tone of your voice. It makes you sound warmer, more friendly, and more confident. If you sound grim and serious, people get tense. If you sound like you're enjoying yourself, people relax. And when they relax, you relax. It's a feedback loop.
I want to touch on one more thing before we start to wrap up. Storytelling. We mentioned it briefly, but I feel like the people who really captivate me are the ones who can tell a good story. Is that a skill we can learn?
It is absolutely a learned skill. And you don't need to be a novelist. A story in a conversation can be 30 seconds long. It's just about adding color. Instead of saying, I had a busy weekend, you say, I had a crazy weekend. I was running for the bus and I dropped my coffee all over my shoes. That's a tiny story. But suddenly, I have a picture in my head. I see you running. I see the coffee. I feel your pain. Facts tell, but stories sell. If you want to speak like a pro, trade your facts for images. Give the listener something to see in their mind.
Facts tell, stories sell. I'm going to write that down. It makes the conversation so much richer. It gives us something to latch on to. And it invites the other person to share a story too. Oh, I dropped my coffee once too. And boom, you have a connection.
Exactly. And that's the whole game. It's not about perfect grammar. It's about building a bridge between two minds.
So, Ria, to summarize what we've covered today, because there is so much gold here, speaking like a pro is about slowing down, it's about embracing the silence and not rushing to fill it. It's about using simple, clear vocabulary rather than trying to impress. It's about using melody and intonation to carry emotion. And finally, it's about listening and connecting with the human being in front of you.
That is a perfect summary, Tom. And if I could add one final thought,
Please do.
don't wait until you feel ready. You will never feel 100% ready. You will never feel like your English is perfect. Speak anyway. Speak before you are ready. The confidence comes from the doing. It doesn't come before the doing. You build the plane while you are flying it. So go out there, make mistakes, stumble, laugh at yourself, and keep talking. That is what a pro does. A pro keeps showing up.
That is so inspiring. The confidence comes from the doing. I hope everyone listening right now takes that to heart. You don't need a certificate to be a pro speaker. You just need your voice and the courage to use it.
Exactly. Your voice matters. Your stories matter. We want to hear them.
Thank you so much, Ria, for sharing all this wisdom today. I always leave our conversations feeling ready to take on the world.
Thank you, Tom. It is always a joy. And to our listeners, keep practicing, keep pausing, and keep smiling. You have got this.
We will be back soon with another episode. Until then, keep those voices strong and keep learning. Bye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.